a man named Zenos leaves for Shanghai to meet his girlfriend and hands over his restaurant to his brother, Ilos, who is a part-time prisoner. While things go well at first, Ilyas's gambling problem kicks in, and he loses a huge bet to a real estate developer named Thomas. Unfortunately, Ilyas loses the restaurant in the process, but his problems worsen when he discovers that his brother didn't travel anymore. A few weeks earlier, Zenos arrives at his restaurant named Soul Kitchen and starts preparing the meals before his customers show up. A while later, the restaurant gets a few customers, and Zenos gets help from his employees, Lutz and Lucia. When he's through for the day, Zenos receives a call from his girlfriend, Nadine. She sounds disappointed and complains about his lateness for their date, especially because she thought they'd spend more time together before she relocates to Shanghai for a job. She eventually ends the call before he can explain himself. On his way to meet her, he sees an old classmate named Thomas. As they catch up, Thomas says he's into real estate, and Zenos also says he owns a restaurant in an industrial area. This sounds interesting to Thomas, and he asks Zenos for the proper directions to the place so he can visit one day. After Zenos tells him how he can get there, they both head separate ways. Zenos then goes to a fancy restaurant where he sees Nadine sitting at a table with her family members. Nadine's parents and grandmother are at the table and they welcome him to join them. As they're eating, Nadine's grandmother tells Zenos that she doesn't know why Nadine has chosen to go to Shanghai. Zenos tells her not to worry about it because he'll still wait for her. Nadine then asks why he can't just follow her, but he says he can't leave his business. This causes an argument between them, but before things escalate, Nadine's grandmother stops them and tells everyone to continue eating. Elsewhere, a customer at the restaurant doesn't like what he has been served, so he sends the food back to a chef named Shane to make amends. However, this gets Shane angry, and he goes out to shout at the customer for trying to teach him how to cook. As he throws a knife on the table, his boss doesn't like this and fires him on the spot, with everyone at the restaurant looking shocked. After Shane leaves, Zenos excuses himself so he can go outside. There, he sees Shane and tells him that he likes the food he was served. Shane then asks if Zenos has a job for him, but he says he has no opening yet. The next day, Zenos takes Nadine to the airport, and after saying their goodbyes, she leaves on a plane to Shanghai. Elsewhere, Zenos' brother, Ilyas, is in prison for stealing, but he manages to strike a deal with the prison guards to set him free for a limited time on weekends. With this, he leaves and goes to see his brother at his restaurant. Zenos is shocked to see him, but Ilyas quickly explains his arrangement with the prison guards. He mentions that if he can get a job, he'll be allowed to go out every day from prison. He then says he wants to work at the restaurant, but Zenos says he doesn't need extra hands. Ilyas also adds that he doesn't need the actual work and he's only interested in getting out of prison every day. Zenos doesn't think it's a good idea, but after Ilyas convinces him, he agrees and signs the document to make his brother's employment official. Just then, Lucia and Lutz arrive, and as Ilyas sees them, he begs his brother not to mention anything about being a prisoner to them. Later that day, Zenos sees that the dishwasher has a problem, so he decides to lift it out to see what's wrong. He hurts his back in the process and has to leave work early that day. His employees advise him to go to a hospital, but he says he can't afford it. When he gets home, Nadine calls him via video call and he tells her about his back. She then tells him that he can see a physiotherapist named Anna to help him. He agrees to see Anna the next day, and as he starts missing Nadine, he mentions that he'll also join her in Shanghai soon. The following day, Thomas visits Soul Kitchen but doesn't see anyone inside. However, he soon finds a man named Socrates, who is renting a part of Zenos' restaurant for his own shop. Thomas asks about Zenos, but Socrates says he didn't come to work because he's not feeling well. As he then leaves, Thomas takes a picture of the building and starts thinking about how to acquire the place. Elsewhere, Zenos buys some books about Shanghai on his way to see Anna. When he meets her, she assesses his injury and tells him that it could be a hernia. She adds that it could get serious if he doesn't go into surgery soon. Zenos says he can't afford it, and she advises him to avoid standing for too long or carrying anything heavy. She also mentions that he might need to stop cooking. Zenos doesn't look happy about this, but he then decides to call Shane. The next day, Shane visits Soul Kitchen and instantly likes the location. However, when he goes through the menu, he says everything needs to be discarded because all the meals are not good enough. As he talks about how he'll bring in a new menu, Zenos says he prefers his usual menu because that's what his customers like. Shane then says he's not interested in working anymore, but as he leaves, Zenos calls him back and agrees to introduce a new menu. As Zenos is showing Shane around, officials from the Internal Revenue Office come in to ask for his tax papers. Zenos tries to evade the question, but as they realize that he hasn't been paying his tax, they seize his music set. He begs them not to do that, but the woman in charge tells him that she'll be back in 3 weeks to take more things if he fails to pay up. Later that night, business moves pretty slowly because no one wants to try Shane's menu. He confronts the customers for this, but they all say they want their old choices back. Instead of convincing them to try out the new options, Shane insults them for having bad taste, and they all leave. The next day, Ilyas resumes work and brings along his crime buddies, Millie and Ziga. After entering the restaurant, Ilyas tries to flirt with Lucia, but she doesn't seem interested. Shortly after, the sight of no customers in the restaurant frustrates Zenos, and he tells everyone to leave, including Lutz, who is practicing with his small band inside. After they all leave, Zenos rests for a while, and there, Thomas comes in to meet him. The old friends catch up again, but not long into their conversation, Thomas starts asking how Zenos got the restaurant. Zenos tells him that he bought it a long time ago for a bargain, and shortly after, Thomas offers to take him somewhere. They then arrive at a building that Thomas says he's always renting out to people. He says he developed the place from scratch like he has done with some other places. He then asks if Zenos would like to sell his restaurant. Zenos says he'd prefer to rent it out, but Thomas says he wants to buy it. As Zenos still insists that it's not for sale, Thomas says his offer still stands for whenever he's ready. The next day, though, Thomas calls the health department and says a lot of bad things about Soul Kitchen so it can be closed down. When Zenos and Ilyas get to the restaurant that day, they meet officials from the health department waiting for them. As they inspect the restaurant, the men complain about a lot of things, after which they tell Zenos that if things don't change in a week, his restaurant will be closed down. After they leave, Zenos starts thinking of what to do. Lutz then arrives with his band and tells Zenos that some fans are coming to watch them practice. When the fans arrive, things appear to be going really well until the fans start asking for food. Lucia informs Zenos about this, and he calls Shane to come over immediately. Shortly after, the chef arrives and the guests enjoy his meal. After a while, Zenos gets tired of the loud music and tells everyone to leave. Lucia then suggests going to a party with Zenos and Ilyas. On the way, Ilyas asks if Zenos has mentioned anything about being a prisoner to Lucia. Zenos says he hasn't, and Ilyas begs him not to say anything because he likes her. A while later, they arrive at the party and start dancing. Ilyas sees how well Lucia is enjoying herself, so he goes to the DJ to ask how to operate his music set. However, the DJ sends him away, and this hurts Ilyas, so he leaves. On his way out, he then calls Millie and Ziga to rob the club and steal the DJ's music set. Just as the criminals enter the club, they see Zenos and greet him before stealing what they came for. With this, Zenos and Lucia decide to leave. However, she asks him how the robbers knew him. Even though Zenos knows that Millie and Ziga were behind it, he says he didn't know the robbers. She then keeps asking him about it, but he doesn't say much. They then go to a bar, and as she continues to pester him for a proper explanation, he tells her that Ilyas is a prisoner. She's already drunk, but she still finds it interesting that Ilyas is a criminal. She then tells Zenos that it's also romantic and that she'll think of Ilyas in the same way as the Count of Monte Cristo, who famously spent time in prison. She eventually passes out, and Zenos has to take her home. He also ends up sleeping in her apartment when he's unable to go home. In the morning, Zenos wakes up to a call from Ilyas, who says he's falling in love with Lucia. Zenos feels bad about this because he's already given up his brother's secret to the woman he loves. When Lucia wakes up, Zenos asks if she'd like to manage his restaurant, but she says she can't do it. She, however, tells him to ask Ilyas about it. When Zenos gets to work that day, he sees Ilyas and his friends bringing the stolen DJ set to the restaurant. Even though he tells them to take it away, Ilyas still brings it in. It then turns out to be very useful when the restaurant gets a lot of customers that night. Zenos also starts learning from Shane, and much later he prints flyers for the restaurant and hands them out with Lucia and Ilyas. This helps get more customers to the restaurant, and Zenos makes a lot of money. He then replaces the things in the kitchen and gets a good review from the health department. However, one night at work, Lucia mistakenly calls Ilos the Count of Monte Cristo, and this makes him realize that Zenos told her his secret already. He leaves the restaurant angrily, and Lucia immediately tells Zenos about it. As Zenos is leaving the restaurant to find his brother, Thomas shows up and looks disappointed at how he has transformed the place. Meanwhile, Zenos doesn't care, and he leaves anyway. When he gets home, he calls Nadine, but she doesn't sound interested in talking to him. She also tells him not to come to Shanghai again, after which she ends the call. Zenos then starts thinking about how he can leave for Shanghai immediately. The next day, he goes to see Anna for his regular checkup, and while they're together, they seem to get along well. While Ilos is at a gambling shop, Zenos calls him to say sorry, but he doesn't answer. Later that night, though, Zenos finds his brother and says sorry for what happened. Ilos still doesn't look happy about it, but Zenos says Lucia found it romantic. Before Ilos can leave, Zenos says he wants to make his brother the manager at Seoul Kitchen because he wants to leave for Shanghai to meet Nadine as soon as possible. The next day, Zenos officially puts Ilos in charge of the restaurant and hands over his apartment as well. That night, Zenos finally pays up his tax when the revenue officer shows up. Thomas also arrives, but not long after, he appears to be rude to the revenue officer, who hears him while he boasts about it to Zenos. After he leaves, though, the revenue officer asks for his name, and when Zenos tells her, she thinks about teaching him a lesson. The next day, Zenos leaves for the airport, but he meets Nadine there. He asks why she's back so early, and she says her grandmother died. She then leaves hurriedly with a man named Han. After getting his bag so he can leave, Zenos hurts his back again, and he's rushed to the hospital. There, the doctor tells him that his hernia has gotten serious. However, Zenos says he can't afford treatment because he doesn't have insurance. He then resorts to taking pain meds to ease his pain. He also tries calling Nadine, but it doesn't go through. Elsewhere, Thomas figures out that Ilos is now the owner of Seoul Kitchen. He goes to the restaurant and joins Millie and Ziga while they're gambling at a table. After a while, Ilos also joins them, and Thomas puts down a lot of money. Despite being on a losing streak, Ilos still continues gambling until he incurs a huge debt. Because he doesn't have any money left, Thomas gets him to use Seoul Kitchen to pay his debt. Meanwhile, Zenos decides to find Nadine at her house. When he gets there, he sees her leaving for her grandmother's burial. He follows her there, but rather unfortunately, he sees Nadine holding hands with Han and realizes that they're in a relationship. He gets pissed and disrupts the burial, but this only gets him sent away. He then returns to his apartment to burn the books he bought about Shanghai. Ilos meets him there and looks shocked to see that his brother didn't travel anymore. The fire soon escalates, and they have to leave the house for the fire department to deal with it. They eventually stay in a hotel for the night, but in the morning, Zenos says he's going to the restaurant. Even though Ilos tries to stop him, he still leaves, only to find some thugs throwing out Socrates and saying that the building now belongs to Thomas. Zenos gets angry and immediately runs to Thomas's office. There, he's speaking to a client, Herr Jung, who is using his pills and also talking about buying Zenos's building. Zenos barges in and accuses Thomas of stealing his place, but his friend then shows him that Ilos gambled it away. Zenos is shocked by this, and he returns to the hotel to scold Ilos, who feels sorry for what he did. After a while, Zenos suggests going to Thomas's office to steal the building's official papers. Ilos gets Millie and Ziega to join them, and after breaking into the office, Zenos finds the papers. Before they can leave, the cops show up. While Ilos and his boys are able to escape, Zenos' hernia stops him from trying anything. He eventually gets arrested, but as he's being taken away, Ilos surrenders and says they broke into the office together. Shortly after, Zenos makes bail and is released. As he leaves the police department, though, he realizes that his pain meds have finished, so he goes to Anna for help. She then takes him to a doctor of alternative medicine to help deal with the hernia. Even though he's scared, Anna stays with him until the procedure is done. Days later, Zenos recovers and starts working in a factory. After work, he gets a call from Nadine, and when he answers it, she suggests meeting him at a restaurant. When they meet, Nadine says sorry for what she did and says her grandmother's death really hurt her. She then mentions that she has now inherited all her grandmother's properties. Zenos sees that she's now a rich woman, and he asks what she'll do next. She then says she's going back to Shanghai with Han soon. Days later, Ilos gets freed, and on his way out, he sees Thomas being taken into a cell. It turns out that the revenue officer eventually found some dirt on him, and sent him to jail for it. As Ilos then leaves, he meets Lucia waiting for him. Elsewhere, Zenos stops at his old restaurant and sees a note on the wall from Shane, who says he's still open to work. Zenos then sees a notice showing that the restaurant is being auctioned out to the public that day. He immediately runs to meet Nadine to lend him some money so he can get back his restaurant. After she gives him what he wants, Zenos goes to the auction house and meets Socrates there. As they both look excited to get the building back, they see Herr Jung also present. The bidding soon starts, and Herr Jung makes a huge bid that makes Socrates get angry and lash out at him. In the process of being bundled out, his shirt button falls into the man's drug case. He then mistakenly swallows the button while taking one of his pills. Just as Zenos places a final bid with all the money he has, the man starts choking and is unable to make a counteroffer. With this, Zenos wins the bidding and gets back his restaurant. A while later, he then starts cleaning the place and preparing to open for business. However, before he opens, he invites Anna on a date, and after she arrives, they eat together and enjoy each other's company.